Alright, other HQ choices. You have the priest here, the Ministorm priests, so missionaries. These priests went from overpriced in the previous codex and rarely seen to something that's probably pretty good. It does have some limitations, but it's a pretty good option. You can take up to 5 of them per Force Org slot, and they unfortunately don't work as HQs. They're in the HQ section, but they don't take up any sort of Force Org slot, so yeah, you can take a whole bunch of them, but they do cost something. They cost only 25 points now. So they have a very similar stat line to the past, but with 25 points, they're much cheaper, and they make your units far more survivable and potentially useful. So these guys all come with a 4+ invulnerable save. So regardless of their armor, you're not going to worry about their armor. They have a 4+ invulnerable save. They do have a leadership 7, which is important for using some of their special powers. They're not always going to go off. You might not rely on it too much, but leadership 7. Okay, they always come with a close combat weapon. The models have different close combat weapons, but they come with a default close combat weapon, and they have assault grenades and crack grenades, so they're pretty good. They can take down a light vehicle in combat, and we'll get to the combat in a little bit. They're independent characters, so you can add them to other squads, and a big boost is they're zealots, which means they're fearless and have hatred, so they're going to give their squad fearless and hatred. So you can stick them in a squad of 5 girls, and those girls are not going to run off the table until you kill the priest or all of them. They have a special rule called War Hymns. Gives them pretty useful powers. Now, it doesn't always work, but when it goes off, the War Hymns are going to let them choose their it's going to let them choose their effect. They say I'm gonna use this effect, and then roll with it. So you say I'm gonna use the Emperor Protects, and I'm gonna get a bonus to my invulnerable or armor save. That's good if you want to keep your squad from being killed. And remember, you can do this only in the fighting phase. So you're doing this while in close combat. You could give this guy Smash, and this is where something really cool comes in. This priest, he by default is wielding a close combat weapon. He's strength 3. If he passes his test and gets Smash, he gets strength 6 potentially, and he's always AP 2. Even if he's still swinging at strength 3, he's AP 2 because he has the Smash rule. On top of this, he swings at initiative, so he's going to swing at strength 6 AP 2, which is kind of like having a power fist on a guardsman, but swinging at initiative. He has the ability to take a power maul, and if he gets a power maul, then he gets +2 to his strength, but still swings at initiative. If he gets Smash with the power maul, then he's essentially swinging a power fist at initiative with all of his normal attack statistics. So he's going to get half his attacks because he's smashing, but still, it's pretty good. So a priest with a power maul gets pretty good. He can take ecclesiastical relics. He can also take an eviscerator, but I'm not sure why you would. They're quite expensive, and they guarantee that you get the armor bane and 6 strength. But I think with the Smash rule, you might be better off just using that particular rule. There's a couple other things with the War Hymns, so he can basically boost his unit while in combat. So the other War Hymn is rerolling to wound. So this is pretty good. The guy gives you hatred, and then he gives you rerolls to wound. So he's pretty versatile, and he makes combat squads really useful. So you could attach him to his own battle conclave, or you could attach him to an Imperial Guard unit. So if you had Ogryns, you could attach him to Ogryns and make them fearless hatred, rerolling wounds with an embedded power fist somewhere. You could attach him to Saint Celestine. There's a lot of options, and you could give him some pretty good weapons, including one which is kind of funny. Something to consider. You can give him a special mace, the Mace of Valen, which is this weird anti-demon mace that when it's within 6 inches of a demon, it becomes Armor Bane and Flesh Bane. And it's a power maul, so it's concussive and it's adding to the strength. So it's a pretty impressive weapon, and usually you're not going to be near demons, but you might consider, if you take Grey Knight allies, if you take demon hosts, which could be troops if you have a Inquisitor Codius, then that weapon becomes sort of a portable Armor Bane, Flesh Bane weapon. I mean, it's got some limitations. You can't put them in the same squad or anything, so you got to play around with how you're going to use it on the table, but it is something to consider. It also is a really awesome weapon if you happen to go up against a lot of demons or against Eldar who really like fielding the Avatar. Anyways, so that's priests. I think they got much better, they got much cheaper, and clearly one real option for them is to take 5 priests per Force Org and drop them into squads of girls. And since you can take squads of 5 girls now, these priests just make them fearless. So your troops become far more survivable with the priest. They can sit on objectives because they're fearless and they're wearing 3 of armor. So that becomes pretty useful. Alright, so if you have a priest or you have Uriah, you can take Battle Conclaves. Battle Conclaves are just like the command squad for the Canonists. They are in the HQ section, but they don't take up a Force Org slot. So they are by default Arcos, Arcoflagellants. These guys are the default for the Battle Conclave. You always start with at least 3 of them. They don't have an armor save, they have Feel No Pain, but they're kind of low toughness, so it doesn't always work. And they come with 2 of these close combat weapons. So they're strength 5, they're going to get base 4 attacks because they have 2 weapons and 5 attacks on the charge. So they're not bad. They can certainly take out a light vehicle. These weapons don't have any AP, so you're not necessarily taking down a bunch of Space Marines with them, but you can do some real damage, particularly if you have a lot of Arcos. The problem is Arcos don't survive very well. Okay, now in the previous codex, you had power weapons on your Crusaders and Death Cult Assassins, but not power swords. That's been fixed, or undone, or however you want to look at it. So now, both Crusaders and Death Cult Assassins have power swords, and only power swords. Crusaders, we'll start with them. These guys have Storm Shields, so they have a 3+ invulnerable save on top of their 5+ armor. You're not going to see that removed very often, so pretty much they get a 3-up save against everything, so you're going to put them in your squad because you want to keep some of your squad alive, so you put that invulnerable save in to take up hits for the rest of them. And they're kind of low initiative, but they do have power swords, so against standard Space Marines or Guard or Tyranids or Eldar, or anything that doesn't have an invulnerable or Terminator armor, these guys are going to be able to kill them, or at least put wounds on them. So they're useful. And then the Death Cult Assassins, they're not quite as cool as they were in the previous edition, because now they have to take only power swords, but they have a 5+ invulnerable save, they have a pretty rocking weapon skill, and they have an initiative that beats almost everything, so they're pretty good. This is a great option still to take Battle Conclaves. The one thing that is hurting them, and continues to hurt them, is the lack of assault vehicles. Sisters still don't have assault vehicles, so you can take a big Battle Conclave and still don't get an assault vehicle. But if you stick a priest in with them, they're fearless, and a fearless Battle Conclave is a pretty effective close combat device. As long as you can get it to your opponent and get it into combat, it usually wins if it's big enough.